There you go. All right, now I'm recording. That's good. No information happened anyway. All right. So this is what happens. You know that in March, COVID basically shut down school. Okay. When your student or kid is in 11th grade, that's a really big time for them. March is typically when your high school has advised your student to take the SAT for the first time, to sort of dip their toe in to see how they're going to do and what they need to do in order to get themselves to the place they need to be in order to get into college. Here's one difference. Typically, if you take an SAT or a PSAT without practicing, your student will not do as well as they can because it's not a intelligence test. It's a how well do you know this game test. But that happens. But also in March is a big time. February, March is a big time for college fairs. So your high school might have a college fair. There's usually a big national or regional college fair where you can go and see 200, 300, 400 colleges. And I would always laugh at that and say, you know, everybody's telling you this is the most important decision you have to make. You're making a decision for the next, not only the next 4, 5, 6 years, but for the rest of your, that could affect you the rest of your life. It's so, so important that we brought all these colleges here. You got an hour, go. And then you go and you wait in line and you get to 2 or 3 colleges and you don't get anything really substantive. So your kid will have somewhat of an idea of where they're interested in going to school, probably not have much of an idea of where they want to go. But then April rolls around, there's a Easter break, and a lot of people go visit colleges. But this year you weren't allowed to visit colleges, and I've talked about the impact of a visit, and I'm telling you right now, if you didn't have a chance to visit a school, it's no big deal. And I'll tell you why, and I'll tell you how to get the information that you need. You'll have plenty of time to visit, I promise. Then May comes up again. That's when the SAT, May and June, there's 2 other SATs that these juniors are really psyched to take. They couldn't take those either. And we all know that they tried to reschedule them in July and in August. And I mean that for the ACT. Those tests were all canceled. I'm sorry for the people who showed up for the ACT 2 weeks ago and they told you it was on and it was closed down. There's an August 29th SAT that about 420,000 people signed up for, and they just canceled about half of those. I did hear through the grapevine, but they didn't put out the grapevine means I talked to somebody at the ACT. They're most likely going to be canceling the September ACT. It has nothing to do with them. It has the fact to do with the fact that if schools are having people back in to high school, they don't want to bring outsiders in. And if they don't have anybody there and they're going online, they don't want to bring outsiders in. So, but I'm going to tell you how COVID impacted that, why you shouldn't be panicking if you don't have an SAT or an ACT, and what you should do to get yourself to make sure that you and your student are fully prepared for what's coming up. So then August comes around, and June is also, by the way, May and June is also when not only are they focusing on tests, but on their APs. A lot of people take APs. The idea is you can take an AP exam. If you take an AP class, you show a college that you can do college level work. And if you take an AP exam, there's a very good chance if you get a 3, 4, or a 5, depending upon the school, that you can get free college credits or $90 for the credits that would typically cost you anywhere from $500 to $2,500. But the APs got canceled as well, the regular APs. Instead, they came up with a truncated 45-minute AP. The kids had to take the test without having completed the entire course. They had no idea what was going to be on the test. I will just tell you across the board, if you did well, congratulations. Most people are not happy with their APs. This is all leading to something as to how it's changed and what this is all impacting what you're going to be sending to a college. So then once you're done that and your kids are finished their finals and they get out of school and it's mid-June and then they start to relax, usually July is when parents start to panic because they go, you haven't done anything. Are you going to school? Where are you going to school? We went to a visit. You didn't follow up. You didn't do this. What are you going to do? I don't know. Well, I just want you to know that I don't know is not them being lazy. That I don't know is because they truly don't know, because our kids are not taught what college is for, how to use college, what jobs, what skills are important, how you can relate what you're studying to what you want to do. So when they say, I don't know what I want to study, they really don't know. And without getting information, they really will continue not to know. And then you end up going to school, being undeclared, or really where you go unprepared, and you waste a lot of time and money. There is a great way to go to school undeclared if you know why you're going there and what it is, what things you're going to explore. All right. And again, I'm going through the typical. So then that's when the parents are freaking out and the kids don't care. That's July. August is when things start to ramp up. That's when parents go from being worried to being stricter. Get your stuff moving. And especially because August 1st is when the common application, which is the application that's utilized by about 600 or 700 colleges, opens, and you can start applying to schools. September and October. September is when I always have my students that I'm working with be prepared to file their applications by September 1 for at least the schools that we are focusing on. Keep this in mind. Once you send your application in, the hard work starts. It doesn't go away. At least my hard work starts. But if you're looking to apply early action, early decision, I'll tell you the difference between those. You want to have your applications and all this process. I'm going to tell you about what you should go through before that happens. Now the fun part, the money. October, FAFSA. FAFSA, the free application for student aid. It's a really fancy word for here's your first loan that you're going to be taking from the government. It is the FAFSA form. Once you fill it out, every student qualifies for a guaranteed loan. They can sign up for a guaranteed debt of $30,500. It's distributed $5,500 the first year, $65 the second, $75 the next two, and if necessary, through the next 3 years. I bring that up because the national average for graduation in 4 years is 38%. It's 44% for 5 years. It's 57% for 6 years. Colleges are so bad at graduating the majority of their kids that the federal government's now requiring them to report their 8-year graduation rates. Later on, I'm going to show you the difference in money from that. November is when the early action deadline is. You have to get your applications in by October 15th, November 1st, November 15th, depending upon where you're applying. If you're applying to a California school, their application deadline is the earliest. It's early November. By December now, people are throwing out their last-ditch effort to apply to school, which they don't have to do it that way because there are schools that have rolling admission, and you can today apply to the state schools in Pennsylvania and get admitted and start in September. January, you know what happens in January? Absolutely nothing. There are additional SATs after your people don't know this, after your application is sent in. You can no longer, you can continue to report SAT, ACT dates, test scores until the deadline closes for your application. But you can still submit scores after that if your student is admitted and missed a financial merit benefit. If they needed 50 more points to get a bigger scholarship, you can still apply. February 1st is when the regular decisions start coming out. There are other schools like Delaware that does it on April 1st, and Temple does it March 15th. Those decisions come out, and with those decisions are the financial aid awards. I will go through that in a little bit. Most people, the financial aid letters and the financial aid breakdown are some of the most dishonest things I've ever seen. They will literally show you when you go to the bottom that it costs X amount of money, we're giving you this amount, you're going to be contributing a ton, you're going to be taking a big loan, and it says final cost of education, $0. You know, that's a great way to do it. And then, believe it or not, March and April are the times when you should be visiting the schools again, the ones that you've narrowed it down to. You should really have a great handle on what your student is interested in studying, know why they're going where they're going. And then May 1st is decision day. Most colleges say, well, that's a national decision day. That was changed by COVID, but by May 1st is when you have to deposit and decide where you're going to be going. Now, that is, I think, about 15 months. So there's a lot in there that has to be done, and they've automated the process, and high schools are interested. And again, my wife's a teacher, my son's a teacher, my daughter works in education, my mother-in-law's a teacher. I'm all about the education. I don't believe that the high schools are in cahoots with anybody to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. But I will tell you this, the rating of how well rated your school district is based upon almost exclusively how many people continue on to college. So it is in the school's best interest, in the guidance office's best interest, to get as many people to apply to college as possible. Now, the guidance counselors are overworked. They do a tremendous job. I know some terrific ones who are college counselors. Some schools don't have college counselors. My point is, you have to slow down this process. You have to take control of the process. And now that COVID has thrown things all, askew, you still have to go through the process as it was. So that covered a lot. I'm happy to send anybody who wants it a timeline like that. But that's how things typically happen. So I'm now going to go briefly over what COVID has done so far, and then I'm going to go into specifics. SATs and ACTs have been canceled. Now about 50% of the colleges are going test optional. I had a seminar about what's the difference between test optional, test blind, and requiring a test. And now so test blind means no matter what you do, the colleges are going to look at your SAT or ACT scores. Regular is you send in they're going to take your SAT scores, they balance that with your GPA. Those are the two primary ways that they determine who's going to go further in the admissions process. Then come the essays, the extracurriculars and things. But you know, the thing that you have to keep in mind is colleges don't have those now. So the colleges that have gone test optional, let me provide this to you. I've had many people call and say, my student's now going to apply to this school that they never thought they'd have a chance to get into because it's test optional. Okay, let me disabuse you of that idea. The top schools, if you're thinking about the top schools, they say it's test optional or they're not looking, and that's probably true. But understand, that's because they have a lot more to judge people on. I was on a seminar yesterday. A big college consultant firm was on there saying, you usually do GPA and SAT scores, put them each on a 100-point scale, and that's how you determine who you're going to admit and what your merit aid is going to be based on. And after about an hour, they came up with and said, well, since you don't have scores, you might as well just rely on your GPA. You need to spend a lot of money for somebody to tell you that. Why am I telling you that? Because if you have a student, you need to know the GPA approximately of where your student fits at particular colleges. GPA is the best indication of how your student will do or can do, at least continue in school. Trust me when I tell you, I know plenty of people who were average students who went on and graduated college at the top of their class, got a ride to go to Oxford for 2 years to do, to do research, then came back and went to a great law school and then had a successful practice. And I'm telling you, I was not a great student in high school, and I also was not a good test taker. But I'm telling you right now that GPA is paramount. That's the first thing I want to tell you. Your GPA is going to be the primary thing schools are looking at. What does that mean? Now look, some schools said pass fail. Some schools stayed on the regular grading system. So there's going to be a disadvantage to some students who were either looking forward to increasing their GPA this year and might not have that opportunity. So what do you have to do? The best thing you can do for your student is you have a couple weeks until school starts. You already knew, you can have a sense of how they did with virtual learning for the last 2 months of school. Even though it wasn't complete, I don't think anybody really sat down and developed really good skills of how to take online courses from what happened in the last couple of months of school. Nobody knew when they were going back, and the requirements weren't as stringent. So now is the time, between now and the time they go back to school on September 8th, to bang it into your kids' heads that it is going to matter how they do this semester. You want to make sure that your school district is going to be grading the regular way. You're going to see if it's going to be weighted in some way or pass fail. Then we have to make plans to offset that. It's our responsibility to make sure that the school has an accurate representation of who your child is. So one, don't wait till school starts. Now I can tell you that they're not exactly sure yet how they're going to be doing everything, but keep on track of it and let your kid know that school is school. Get them up at a reason. They have to get up, they have to sit down, they have to do the work, they have to learn how to reach out to tutors, they have to learn how to reach out to their teachers and become better learners. I'm not saying that because I want everybody to be an A student. If you've known me at all, I don't believe everybody, I don't think college is right for everybody, and I especially don't think college is right for everybody at 17 or 18 years old. But I'm talking across the board. You know, there's a lot to be gained from starting to put in time management now, study skills now, dealing with frustrations now, reaching out for help now, because those are things that are essential in college. Again, does that mean that if you have by the way, if your student is a 2.0 or a 2.5, and I know plenty of great schools that they don't care what you did in high school. If you don't have a large criminal record and you can go there, they do placement tests. B students, C students get great education places. But that's the thing, GPA is everything. Don't listen to anybody else. So the second thing is testing, right? So I talked about that before. So if a school, look, schools are run by people. People are creatures of habit. We haven't changed since, you know, Adam and Eve. Okay, we dress up differently, we act differently, but the base instincts are there, which means that colleges have been doing business the same way for a long time. They evaluate, they have these habits now. They evaluate people the same way. They're going to go, let's look at the GPA. Let's look at the essay. Oh, no SAT score. Let's look at the GPA. And then let's look at the essay. Let's look at extracurriculars. Let's look at you know, research they've done or other classes or extra work. Now I'm talking about most of the schools, not, let's say not the top 80 to 100 schools, right, that are somewhat selective. Colleges are going to need people. Colleges, no matter, I can't even tell people, I don't know what the cutoff on a GPA at a particular school is going to be yet, because they don't know yet. So it's important to know, I do believe that the cutoff for some schools will be somewhat lower. I think schools are going to be more forgiving. 20% of students this year have already opted to take a gap year. If things I expect will improve and people will be going back to school by the time your kids start. But we're looking at, really going to be looking at, since they're not so worried about behavior if they're not on campus, can they do the work? Okay, so take this time, understand they are going to rely on GPA. So what do? Well, it's our responsibility, and I look at myself as I'm your kid's agent. I'm marketing this asset that you have to a business that wants to purchase assets. Don't kid yourself. That's what colleges are doing. When they give you a scholarship, the bigger the scholarship is because they want you on campus. It's not a reward for what you did in school. It's a signing bonus for the anticipation of what you're going to do. So we have to take other steps, especially now, to put our marketing plan together and make sure that our package, the marketing that we do and the student that we're presenting it is in the best possible light. I've said this before, don't be lulled into believing that test optional SAT, ACT makes it easier or it's not necessary. All of my kids that I'm working with, I still have them on track studying for the ACT and SAT. And there's a couple reasons for it. I don't do it necessarily because they're going to need a higher score to get in. My job really isn't to get your student into a particular school, right? My job is to get to know who your student is, help them know who they are, understand what's of interest to them and the family, show you how to identify what's probably the best place for them to be or places to be, match them up with schools that are going to value who they are, and bring the cost of that education down as low as possible, because the biggest source of money is the school. But by the better you do on the SAT or ACT, it's an extra chip you get to throw in. let's say a school says, we're going to go test optional. We don't want to look at your scores. As I said before, their merit scholarships are heavily based, and a lot of them are slated. And they just say, if you have a 3.5 and a 1290, we're going to give you $10,000 a year. If you have a 3.75 and a 1350, we're going to give you $8,000 a year. If you have a 375 and a 1410, we're going to charge you in-state tuition instead of out-of-state tuition and save you $40,000 a year in tuition. That's what's important, because once they get in, you never stop working to improve your financial position with the school. You never stop improving the worth of your child. And that's what I'll talk about in a little bit, about what they can be doing and should be doing now to make up for those schools that might not be looking at SAT. And again, I've done separate seminars on all that. I'm trying to cover a lot of information. So let me see if I can get this across. If your student, how many of you, by the way, how many of your students have not taken an SAT, not the PSAT, but an SAT or ACT? They were signed up and never had a chance to do it. Can you just do a little emoji thingy? Okay. I assume that you probably continue to sign them up. I don't know if they signed up for SAT or ACT. I've been encouraging a lot of my students to focus more on the ACT in the last couple of years, simply because College Board has been changing so many things with the SAT. But I would tell you this, what's going to happen psychologically is that students always, most of the students undershoot for a school. And I'm not saying that, you know, everybody should shoot to go to Princeton or Yale or Harvard or Michigan or any school like that. Okay, I don't buy into a lot of that stuff anyway. But what happens when, you have to be careful of this. If they start lowering their expectations about the type of work they're going to be doing because they're online, and the amount of work they have to do because they're online, and then they say, well, now a lot of the schools aren't even accepting or don't have to accept it, that continues to devalue the school in their eyes. They might say, oh, good, it's easier, I don't have to do it. But two things happen. They start decreasing their effort in school, and then they stop focusing on the SAT or ACT and start accepting just whatever is there, and that's what you have to stop. So what's the worst case scenario? You sign up and it gets canceled, and then you re-sign up, and the ACT had to be re-signed up, and I had people when they got on and they were assigned to Alabama, right? Well, don't go to Alabama to take a test. But, you know, a day or two later, it came around. So two things. Don't panic if they haven't taken it. There's plenty of great schools that you can go test optional. I'll tell you this, test optional almost always require extra essays because they have no other way to know who your kid is. When I work with students, we continue to put together. When I work with students, we felt when that application's filed, that school hears from us at least once a month about what's going on, what they're doing, with a question, how things are. You know, that really has an impact on when they get to know your kid. Okay, so the next thing that COVID has changed is, you know, you're looking to purchase a school. So a lot of people go to this, US News and World Reports, the best colleges around, and it's thick and it's shiny and it's glossy, and I rely on this to help me sit straight in my chair. I do this, and that's the only thing I use it for. And it has great value because it keeps me sitting up straight. That book is worthless. It's worthless. US News, if US News and World Report was so great at being a magazine, why they've been out of business for so long, right? This information is information provided by colleges. This information does not relate to your kid, okay? The back of it's good because it lists all the colleges and gives you some information. The rankings mean nothing. What do you care what it's ranked? Nobody gets out of college and they go, hey, well, where'd you go to school, right? Unless you go to Wharton, or unless you go to a big firm or in a particular engineering program. you know, I have people who I know that are working on Wall Street that went to colleges you never heard of, you know. So I'm not saying don't look, don't rely on this, okay, because it's very individualized. There's a better book from College Transitions. This is called College is Worth Your Money, and it got a great review, and I got it. Please don't write the name down because I went through it, and it should have been called The List of the 210 Most Expensive Colleges You Can Go to Anywhere in the World. Now, there's a lot of information on there. If you don't know anything about a college, it's good to look through that and find out. So let me get to the heart of this. Let's talk about this. What's really important? How do you? And I'm going back to this. How in the heck do you figure out? How do you hone your list of schools to apply? I don't use the word hone. My media writer Laura used hone, but how do you hone in, right? that's fine. How do you take this information? How do you even compile a list of schools? Where do you start with this stuff, right? I'm going to show you a couple ways to do it, the best thing to do. But look, most people that I work with, you have to understand, first of all, did you know, anybody know, you can raise your hand if you did, anybody know, did you know that 80% of all colleges and universities have less than 3,000 people in them? No, nobody ever knows that. You think of college and university, you think 5, 10, 20. The college, there are colleges with, there's a college down the street, Bryn Athyn has a total population of 319 kids, right? A lot of schools have 1,500, 2,000. But how do you know if that school is right? How do you even know about it? Well, here's the process that I use. I'm happy to send it to you. Actually, let me do something fun. Let me share my screen with you. By the way, if none of this is helpful, let me know. I had, here, let me share this with you. Here, I'm going to share this. So how do you go about helping your kid? How do you go about, what kind of process did you go through? I promise you I'm not selling anything. I'm telling you the process, okay? I have 8 steps that I go through over the 15 months. I have 8 steps that I go through whether you hire me for 2 months or whatever. So it says set your course of action. It says you want to get to know that we understand your goals. So, and it says interviews with the students and parents, what your family needs. You have to have a conversation, by the way, not just driven by money, but you're going to ask your kid, your student, what are they interested in? What do they like? They're going to say, I don't know. I'm not sure yet. Or you're good at math. Why don't you try to do this? So you had to start that, you know, and you go, because the kid's good at math. Most people say, well, you could be an accountant, an engineer, a statistician, maybe a market research analyst. Then you go to Google and you look up market research analysts, top schools, and they come up. And you'll get the same list. I'm going to show you how to use them to fit your kid. This whole thing is about fit. I have a cool PowerPoint about fit I don't need to use, but this is what I mean. If you're sending your student to college, you're sending your kid to college to understand an area or areas that they want to develop skills in, so that they've developed those skills to such a level that when they get out, they can apply them in the real world. Then you have to know a lot about your student. So what does that mean? Well, colleges aren't a monolith. Colleges teach differently. They're good at teaching different people. So a comprehensive student assessment, you know, and you don't have to do it with me, but do you know what their interests are? Do you really know what their skills are? Not just math or chemistry or writing or reading or whatever it is, but down to what types of activities are they good at? You know, your strengths and your values. So we do all these tests. I don't do a ton of them. I do some ones that I found to be effective. So I develop a profile of the student. You know, then we interpret it. I can show you what that's like. And I actually have a program that the algorithm takes the child's learning style, their social style, any social quirks that they may have, any learning preferences. Are they somebody who likes to read? Do they want to be interactive? Do they need to be in a class with some people, no people, a lot of people, be in the lab, do things virtually, you know, have independent help, whatever. That's all important to be successful. And it's important so that you can pick a school, because fit is because colleges are sold as one size fits all, and that usually doesn't. It also, the career interest and exploration point, I want to make a point about this. I'm not saying you have to, or a student have to know exactly what they want to be before they apply. This career and interest exploration takes place constantly. It not only takes place after you've applied, but while you've applied and you're still developing what skills I need, what I can do, how it relates, what kind of jobs are out there now, what kind of jobs are there going to be. You can get a lot of information. I'll show you some websites about that. And it's just having those conversations. It's not being done in school, and most people just default to what they see either on television or what you or your friends, family do. But when I say that's something, I have an adage, it's you do college one semester at a time. You go to college if you're undeclared or even if you are declared, and you should always know, and I'll talk about that, what your kids are going to be doing for all 4 years before you sign on the dotted line, and all schools have the ability to show you that. You want to know what you're purchasing up front. So the guided college search is taking the interest, personality, skill, strength, and values, matching them up based upon historical record about people, it gets down to, my student likes to do X, Y, and Z and study this particular way and likes to be in this kind of environment, needs this kind of extra help, and needs to learn how to be a self-advocate and set up for that. There are schools that are better for that, and that's the important thing. And it's important you all like checklists and timelines to make sure things go on. Once that's done and you have a list of schools, then it's about learning how to do your application. So and I'm going to show you this. I know it's a lot. Trust me when I tell you it's a lot. You'll probably have a headache. First, this is recorded. Secondly, I do free consultations. I have a lot of information, free information I can help you with. I'm willing to come and sit with you and your friends on Zoom and do more of this stuff, or to your school or to your association to help you. So I'm going to get back to that. I talk about the list of schools. I'm going to show you. The application, again, I'm just kind of touching on what's happening with COVID. What's really important now in your application? So we talked about the common application. Your application process, filling out an application is pretty easy. I'm going to show you the common application. You're literally providing a name, address, phone number, parents' name, address, and phone number, siblings' name, address, and phone number, where you went to high school, where do you live, what do your parents do, where did you go to high school. Then they want to know, some schools want to know, you have to put in your classes and grades from 9th grade on. Those are some schools, in addition to sending a transcript. Then there's a section after that. There's one of two things. They either allow you to fill out an activity section where you can do up to 10 activities, honors, awards, extracurriculars work, or they have, as part of the essay, a separate section that says you can list up to 10 activities and tell us what happens. I'm telling you right now that I know what they're looking for, and they don't want to just see a list of anything. They want to see people who persevere in a particular, I don't know if you can see me or not, maybe you can, a particular type of way. I want to stop sharing this, because after this, it just goes into essays and financial aid, and I'm going to go through that. So I'm back. I'm going to show you something else. So you're filling out the Common App, and then you get to what everybody's worried about, the essay, okay? The Common Application, a lot of schools have their own applications, but people say, how does a Common Application work? Well, you do the common stuff. You then list the schools that you want to share that application to. The Common Application, those schools have agreed that they want to have at least one essay. There's one initial 650-word essay. There's 7 prompts that they'll tell you things that you can possibly write about. The essay is extremely important, not to show creativity, but it's the only real opportunity. This application is it's really the only opportunity you have to really put together, here's my presentation, here's who I am, this is my life, this is what I do, this is what I've accomplished, this is what I like to do. And when you're looking at all this stuff, here's things that have happened to me that have made me who I am and what's motivating me to go forward. So the essay, no matter what the prompt is this is who I am, this is how I became this way, this is who I want to be, and this is how I'm going to get there, right? And having an English teacher review your essay is great for grammar, but trust me when I tell you, the admissions people read them much differently when they read them at all. And some schools will and some schools won't. The second essay that they'll show is when they say activities, 10 activities, 50 words each. It's very important that we make sure when we put those activities together, we're not starting with National Honor Society, we're not starting with tennis for 4 years, unless you're going to school to be a tennis player and unless you're going into politics and you've done something really important with National Honor Society other than being the president and doing your minimal amount of hours. It's other things that could be more important, you know, especially now. I will tell you right now that colleges are focused not on COVID, but they're focused on the protests and social justice marches that are going on. There was a letter that came out about a month ago from 330 deans of admissions and said, in this COVID environment, here's what's important to us. We feel it's time to de-emphasize academic excellence and to be an agent of change to make the next generation of socially conscious justice warriors. And I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying that I think we're primarily going to school to learn how to learn, right? And everything else should come there. So why is that important? Because if they're looking for people who are active, and I have a lot of students who are active, you better put that up front in your essay. The third essay that you can do, you only have to do one if you want. The third essay is, hey, if you didn't tell us anything that's so important that you want to tell us, write another essay for us and tell us about that. I have a girl who talked about, you know, recovering from, I don't know, she recovered from like some tropical disease with some experimental treatments. And then she decided she would write about how she was she lucked into a job in a third world country developing a method for making cheaper prosthetics for landmine victims, right? So she had to tell them stuff like that. And no, most kids don't have that kind of stuff. And then the fourth essay is the COVID essay. The fourth essay is, hey, listen, we know that everybody and their brother and sister are going to write about COVID for their essay. Please don't do that to us. But if you had something happen that was really traumatic or really inspiring or really shaped you because of COVID, here's 250 more words and you can write those. So the essay takes on extra import, but it goes just along with everything you send, a couple mistakes. Don't repeat anything. Don't write an essay about something you already wrote about. Don't emphasize something that you've already mentioned. It has to be individual pieces. That takes us to the next part that people ask me about is, oh, and by the way, in every school, if they have extra, if you're going into a particular program or they have, like if you're going to a nursing program or an engineering program or a BS, MD combined program or an honors college, you're going to have automatic extra essays. But other schools just need more information, so they're going to ask you to do, you know, here's 4 more optional essays, do 1 or 2 of these. Let me tell you that even though colleges are tired typically of reading a lot of stuff, for very selective schools, anything that they say is optional is their signal that if you don't fill it out, you're not their kind of person. So that's not on the typical schools, but the super selective schools. And again, that's something that I've been working with people for a long time, and I don't write anything for people. I'm not one of those people who does the work for them. I make your kids do the work. I guide them, I direct them, I help them along. I make sure that but it has to be their work. It's not my voice, it's theirs. And please understand, I don't make any decisions for people. I don't. I just keep providing information and weigh in on that. So then there's a question about, you know that most of you, I don't know where all of you are from, but most of you, your kids have Naviance or Power School or one of those things where the school said, and by the way, I just have to give this warning. Again, I love teachers, I love guidance counselors, but they are constrained in what they can do, when they can do it by the school board, by the district. And if a particular college needs something by a particular date or needs, for example, your class rank, and the school says they don't class rank, you better get them the rank or your kid's going to lose out, okay? I have people who were saying, I can't get a recommendation letter yet. I have to wait for this. I have to wait for that. And the school said, and it was an athlete, the school said, you get it in a week or you're not going to get a scholarship. You have to fight for and get what you're entitled to. Now, so what does that mean? You've heard and your kid said to you, I'm sure that, and by the way, most schools want or will take at least 2 recommendations or maybe at most 2 recommendations, one from the counselor. There has to be a counselor recommendation. The primary purpose of that, since they don't really know your kid, is to basically give them an opportunity to submit the transcript, to be involved. And then with respect to a teacher recommendation, and for transcript requests, they have to be made through Naviance and the guidance office. That does not mean, and I highly recommend, if you want recommendations from a teacher, a clergy, a coach, you better be sending emails now and saying, hi, I'm going to be applying to college. I would like you to write me a letter of recommendation, enclosed as a resume if you decide to do it. You know, I will be sending you an official request. Please let me know. Because you don't want a teacher who's really popular to get all these requests on September 8th and your young lady or young man saying, hey, you're my favorite teacher, write me an essay. And he goes, too late. So you can write them directly and ask them if they're willing to do it. You don't want to be caught short. And then people worry about the transcript. This is what they say. Well, if I'm submitting an application and I want to go early action, let's say get an advantage if I can get one and apply in September, but my kid hasn't taken an SAT or ACT yet, and they still want to, how can I submit it? Well, when you're doing an application, it's the beginning of the process. The most important thing is you have to get the information there by the time the deadline closes. So if the deadline for early action is November 15th, say you're going to apply to a school, and you send the application in September, you simply indicate there's a checkbox on the common application that simply says, do you want us to consider a test that you're taking in the future? You click yes, they go, great, I have your application, they mark it, they put it aside in the computer, they wait, your recommendations come in, it goes into your electronic folder, your references, your resume, your transcripts go in, and then they keep waiting and they'll get that test score. And the nice thing is, if you take this test and you're not happy about it, you just notify them and go, don't wait for that test score anymore, I'm going test option, okay? You don't have to have everything complete, every additional thing complete if you don't have your application, if you have your application in. So wouldn't it be nice, and those are really the main things. It's 7:54, I probably have 18 more hours of stuff to talk about. I'm gonna talk to you quickly about financial aid because that process happens. And by the way, if I didn't indicate this before, there's nothing on Netflix tonight, so I'll stay online as long as anybody wants to talk to me about anything, okay? I mean, what else am I gonna do? I love doing this stuff. So, and you know, so I'll be here, so, you know, get that stuff ready. Okay, let me talk, anyway, that's really rough about, a rough outline about the application process. So this is what you should get. Know a couple things, by the way, also. I mean, I haven't talked about community college and gap years and you know, negotiating with schools. Let me just talk briefly about financial aid. In fact, I want to show you something. So I'm going to share the screen again, and let me find. Oh, I know. I don't want to lose this. Let me show you something. For those of you who are concerned about visits and visiting, okay, I want you to know there's a couple things. I mentioned this before. The Pennsylvania Association of College Admissions Counselors have indicated that there are not going to be any college fairs this fall. The good news is there are going to be a lot of college virtual fairs this fall, and you will have an ability to interact with admissions representatives at particular colleges. It's done in conjunction with this website, StriveScan, strivescan.com. And when you click on that, it will bring you up, this brings this up, StriveScan, Strive Virtual College Exploration, virtual presentations for students and explore college opportunities. It's absolutely free. There's over 500 colleges on it. It even says virtual opportunities for college admissions representatives. What does that mean? Well, here's a list of everybody who did something in April and May. They're all recorded. Here's a session, tips for applying to art colleges, 2-year opportunities with community colleges. Here's, what about submitting or not submitting your SAT, right? Choosing a college that fits. What about money? And it goes, and here's the school areas. They're really good. And you can look by sessions, you can look by colleges. This is what's recorded now. If you want to go to the Tucci's, if you want to go to Bocconi University in Milan or American University in Rome or St. Catherine's, it listed by school, right? And it talks about them, but then you go down, you can go to states, and you can look up, it'll tell you what state. So Pennsylvania, these are the schools that have pre-recorded information. What the excellent part about it is that your admissions representatives are based upon high schools and areas. That's the person who makes the decision. If you're interested in Lafayette, then you go into Pennsylvania and you can click on, where is it? Anyway, you click on here and you can go into the information on there. But the most important thing is that there are going to be live things coming up, and if you sign up for StriveScan, you'll be notified about all the sessions. But keep checking back to this because it's a really great way to get a lot of information. People say that who weren't able to visit schools. There are a couple websites that are really good with respect to having virtual tours. Here's a good website that I'm going to give you. Please don't go crazy by it. People say, why do you get this information now? Well, it's the information. This is called collegetransitions.com Dataverse. Why is that good? Because if you missed anything today, if you don't know the difference between early action, regular mission decision rates, if you want to find out about when are all the application deadlines, when are the SAT subject tests, which schools want to be the self-reported test scores, the ones who make you, who's offering interviews, who considers demonstrated interest. There's information here about financial aid, the deadlines, the merit aid, need-based financial aid. It's a really excellent website that combines things. It's a good place to start. Here, you might want to look up college campus crime statistics or other college rankings. Now, people who work with me, my students, I do this stuff. I am going to get the financial aid. I know it's 8 o'clock. I respect your time. If you drop off, it will be recorded. I'm going to spend about 10 minutes on financial aid and scholarships and then open it to questions. This is the system that I use when you work with me, and this is all the information that I told you that is important, the process, how you do it. This is a system that I use. So the information that's filled out, you do college match, your kid fills out a college match survey, and what does that show? Well, and I don't have to go through all, but you get the idea. So college match actually is a good thing for those of you who have kids laying on the couch, you're not sure if they're ready to go to college or not. College match is a great drop down. Do you agree or disagree? It goes through 10 different sections. I know myself, I'm excited for college, school is fun, blah, blah, blah. It's really extensive. The end result of that is you get a score, and the higher you score, the more prepared you are for school. It's important because I know a lot of, it pinpoints what they're concerned about or what they're missing. Find My Spark is a personality test. You're an empath, you're feeling, you're judgmental. Why is it important? Because somebody with that personality should be at a college that has an intuition, feeling type style. You can have 2 Ivy League schools and you think they're the same and they're not. Learning styles is the most important thing. And again, I have experience, a lot of experience working with LD students, both professionally and in my other profession and this. I'm very tied into the LD community with respect to colleges. I'm aware of colleges that are just LD. If you have a student that has a difference or needs additional help, the most important thing, you can have the best college accessibility, college support system, but it is up to you to put a plan together to give to them to implement. Because if you go to school and your kid goes to school and you go, well, I'm sure they have a tutor, I'm sure they have an aide, I'm sure they have somebody to do therapy, I'm sure they have somebody to do this, your kid's not going to do it and they're not going to reach out. So it's important to know. Athletic worksheet on here is if you're an athlete, it's important to put that down. I don't do the recruiting stuff. I just work with other companies that do, and I advise. There's a place for college visit snapshots. You can keep notes. It's important then, your kids probably haven't even asked this. It's design a college. It's not the same as Naviance. Design a college is pretty general. Let's just have this conversation. I wanted to tell you that, by the way, about 70% of all college students go to school within 90 miles of their house. It's a lot. What kind of climate, what kind of size, you know, that's the typical stuff, the distance, the academics, what you want to study, your political difference, diversity standard, your religion, your diversity preference, financial aid. Why do I do all that when it seems so general? Because it's not general. My system has a very knowledgeable algorithm, and when you get to, and it pops out college recommendations, and it's very, very specific as to those. It doesn't look at rankings outside. It matches how well this is going to serve your child's needs, right? Then it gives you some, you know, this is the breakdown of my schools, but that's not important. What's important is this. You end up with my college lists, and with my college lists, you'll see categories. The schools that came out, and I'll show you where they came from real quickly. Under colleges, I have an area that's called guided search. And in guided search, it's when my algorithm takes everything about your kid and finds schools, makes suggestions for schools based upon the match. And then once we have that, so if you put like, you know, my matches, you can pick what you want to do, and then you can really drill down in criteria. I mean, if you get down to state, you can pick the city you want to be in, you know, what kind of applications. Financial aid is important, you go, and what's the rating, the graduation rates, the need met, and that's important because, so let me just show you quickly. This is how this tool works. You have your college lists. If you've done, and by the way, if you like Excel, you can export all this to Excel. This is all online. So this student has gone through, and we went through a tremendous amount of colleges. They all came out under interested colleges. We then went into them in detail. She, in this case, picked out two she was no longer interested in. The ones that were interested colleges were colleges that matched everything she was looking for, but there were things that didn't fit her, whether she didn't reach what she needed to get into Vanderbilt. Came over to here, and then this is the list of schools that she decided ultimately she would apply to, and did get into these schools. What's nice about this is, first let me show you information-wise, let me just pick a school. Here's University of Pittsburgh. You're worried about getting all the college information. This is everything at your fingertips. And again, it's all the information that's out there. Nothing of this is proprietary, just the way it's put together. The only ratings thing that I look at is called FISC, F-I-S-K-E. That's because all the ratings are based upon student reports, not upon what the administrators want you to know. The nice thing about this is that it gives you the general information. You go, well, okay, Pitt, what are my chances? You go down. It shows your, from last year, the SAT, ACT comparison, shows you where you have to be, what they're looking for, tells you the percent of the unweighted GPA, and that's enrollment rate, not admission, and then the college expense breakdown, you can see the difference. And then financial aid offered, it just breaks it down and says, here's what it costs to attend, here's the average need-based scholarship, but if not, here's the average merit-based scholarship. Why is that important? Because I have great kids who go there and they offer them, you know, $3,000, and they go, well, that's nice, but you're a little light. And then we negotiate for the next couple of months until we get closer to this $10,247. I don't know if I said this. Don't ever pay sticker price for a school. Ever, ever, ever. Okay, don't pay sticker price. You don't pay sticker price for anything. Why are you going to pay sticker price for college? They expect you, they're going to give you, you know what the average discount rate for a school is? It's around 32%. The average discount rate for students that work with me and other people like me is closer to 42 or 43%. A lot of people pay full, and you shouldn't. This is handy when your kid wants to do things. You go in here for essays, and it says, what do I have to do for the University of Pittsburgh? And it says, if you fill out the Common App, here's what you have to do. If you have a university-specific application, they have some things. If you're going to Pitt Honors, here's an additional essay, and it tells you what that essay is. Let me just give you the application on the Common App. This one's interesting. They took away the general, what do you want to talk about? They said, here's your 10 activities. Tell me about a circumstance or qualification not reflected in your application. They're tired of reading stories. They don't want that regular. And this is the COVID disruption. No required supplement, optional supplements. Those optional supplements were there for the NCAA. I hate to be like that, but this is what it was. Have you ever been convicted of a felony or a crime? And now it looks like this year, again, this is one I would say if you're applying, it says responding to short answers is optional. If you want to go to Pitt, you better answer about diversity because they're asking you about that. And I've told you that that's what schools are interested in. This tells you the general categories of scholarships. Let me disabuse you of something. When you hear there's $8 billion of scholarships that go uncollected, that's a crock. When you see these scholarship websites that say, we'll give you 125 scholarships a day to look at and you can apply, good luck. Those are almost always there, unless it's a nonprofit organization, they're almost always there to generate lists, to sell you things, and you don't have to deal with that. The best source of money is the college itself. If you say I make too much money, we don't care. It's what your asset is worth. That's what's important. This is also interesting because what it does is it says what their strongest programs are, but only the strongest programs related to what the student indicated. And it tells you the rating. And then this overlap school is really important because it tells you schools that have on a multi-point scale, things that are very similar on all the things we're looking at, like BU and NYU and Georgetown and Penn State, they have a lot. Now, it's good for parents to go in here. The descriptions are really good. Here's what's nice on this site. You go on to tours. If you haven't been to the University of Pittsburgh, guess what? Here's a video tour of the University of Pittsburgh, and it walks you through the University of Pittsburgh so you have an idea. Anyway, that's just the kind of stuff we've all talked about. I talked about before. That's the system that I use. Okay, let me just talk now briefly about financial aid, okay? I think it's really important to talk about that. Wait, I have this. This is what I want to show you. This is basically what an award letter looks like, okay? They're now required by the federal government to break down your award. So what's the process like? You fill out the FAFSA form. Yes, you fill out one FAFSA form. It's in the name of the student, but the parent has to be on it, and they have to get a federal student aid ID, a FAFSA ID. It's easy to do, you'll see. The FAFSA, basically, the purpose of it is to determine your EFC, or your expected family contribution. What is that? School has a cost of attendance. They say, you're expected to pay this amount out of your pocket, not take a loan to pay it, not get awards to pay it. This is how much we expect you can afford to pay. We don't care how you pay it. We're not counting it as anything other than your assets. And they take that expected family contribution and that reduces it down to your need. That's what they say. Now, that means how much you need to go to school, not that you qualify for aid that's free, grant money from the federal government, grant money from the state government, grant money from the school based upon having a adjusted gross income that's basically 1.5 times the poverty level. That does not mean if you make $200,000, you won't get any aid. If you go to Ivy League school, up to $250,000, you're considered to be full aid, but that doesn't mean that you're going to get full aid anyway. Keep in mind, aid is different. There's grants and scholarships, and then there's loans. Those are the two kinds of aid and cash, right? So let me go through this. So you fill out the FAFSA. People say, well, how can I, and by the way, you're filling out your financial aid information on the FAFSA based upon not this year's taxes, but last year's taxes. It goes back 2 years. And now, you're going, oh my God, I didn't make anything like that this year or next year. Why are they going to do that? Well, because it's the government. And what you do is you can use the tool. It's called the IRS data retrieval tool. When you're filling out your FAFSA, and it takes most people 2, 3, 4 hours. When I do it for people, it takes me 20 minutes because I know what all the words mean, and it's pretty simple. I can teach you how to do it pretty quickly. If you use the IRS data retrieval tool, you don't have to ask yourself, what do I have to report financially so much? Because it'll report the things that you've reported that are reportable income and it'll import it into your form. It's the non-taxable income that they're concerned about, and the non-reportable income and other assets. Your main house isn't your asset, your investment property or other investments are. Just because you have a business doesn't mean it's going to count against you, because you really don't have to report the value of a business unless it's worth more than $5 million and has over 100 employees. So why do they do that? They need to get an EFC. You can see on here, expected family contribution is X amount of money per year. But then it says based on institutional method. What that means is the expected family contribution, when they say you have an adjusted gross income of $100,000, you probably have $18,000 laying around doing nothing you can send us every year. The school has their own method, and so a school may qualify and look at it differently and go, no, you only have to give us like $3 grand and we'll see where else the money comes from. So then you say, well, I still have a balance, what do I do? So again, by working together, we find schools that value your student, we increase the value of your student as an asset that decreases the cost. That's more money they're going to give you. So your costs are your tuition and fees, housing and meals, books and supplies, transportation, other costs, total cost of attendance. Here's what scares a lot of people off, okay? First of all, the only thing you should be comparing when you're deciding on the education is tuition and fees. It's apples to apples, okay? You apply to 2 schools. One of them has tuition of $50,000, the other has a tuition of $30,000. The school that has a $50,000 tuition gives you $25,000 scholarship that takes your tuition down to $25,000. The school that has a $30,000 scholarship gave you $3,000, and you want to go to them and say, that school gave me 25 grand. I want 25 grand and take me down to 5,000. You have to compare apples to apples, right? So that it's fair that way. You look at the overall cost. So now you got a $50,000 tuition bill down to 25, and you have a 30,000 down to 27. Now you can compare the other things. And that's what we negotiate on. Housing and meals are always more expensive the first year when you live there. It can be, you suck it up. That's where they make money, in this year in particular. This is where you can see a total cost right here placed on your bill. Some schools estimate that like miscellaneous expenses, they go, well, let's add $6,000 or $5,000 miscellaneous expenses. And you go, what for? Well, we figure your kid's gonna need about $500 a month in cash just to live. I know when my kids went to school, I go, you got room, you got board, you've got books, you got cable, you got a house, you got everything else. Get a job if you want to do something else, right? So don't look at or take as the gospel. You don't owe that money. You don't owe the extra cost or living expenses. Books and supplies, my advice to you, you can save a lot of money if you rent books. It's cheaper. You go on Amazon, you rent the books, you get the textbooks, they come to you for free, you send them back for free, you rent them for a pittance. Kids don't need to keep the books. You can save thousands of dollars over 4 years. But then let's go to tackle, I still want to tackle this money. I know I'm going long. I want to tackle this money, if somebody's still on here. I want to tackle the money. Where am I going to pay for the stuff that I have left? We've now successfully had your kid apply and accepted to 4 schools. They're now in a situation we have to decide where. We've worked so well that now we've gotten the cost down, and you say, okay, how then do I finance it? Where else am I getting money from? Well, again, need-based aid, federal Pell Grants you can get if you have, your income is low enough, you can get up to $6,200 a year for free from the federal government. State grants in Pennsylvania, it varies, but this year it's right around $4,000. The idea of the state grant is to provide you with enough free money to be able to go to community college for free. The idea of the federal Pell Grant and the state grant together is to provide you enough to cover tuition in your state, in-state tuition at the state schools. That's the 14 PASHE schools in Pennsylvania, Millersville, Bloomsburg, Westchester. But we do have the highest, Pennsylvania, we're #1, the highest in-state tuition. And that's not going to cover all of it, because you might be paying 14 grand for in-state tuition, or 13, and you might only be getting, if you're a 0 EFC, 10 or 11,000. So scholarships that are merit-based, we talked about that before, regardless of need. If your student fits a particular category, they're going to get money guaranteed based upon their academic performance. Look, let's be common sense. If your kid goes somewhere and is a bigger fish, if they're 3.7 and they're 1380 on the SAT, is in the top 10% or 5% of that school, they're going to get a big scholarship. And kids go, well, people go, I want my kids to go to school with smart people. Well, that was great when you were in high school because you wanted them to be motivated. But college, the smartest people are the professors. And as long as you're going to a school that has full PhDs and really great teachers, who cares what the kids are like? The bad kids are going to drop out anyway. And this also brings me down to loans. I know I'm going over, people ask me this. When you file your FAFSA, everybody qualifies for a federal loan, a federal direct subsidized loan, or a federal direct unsubsidized loan. The first year, as I said, you get $5,500. That's in your student's name only, that's not co-signed. Depending upon your financial need, you either get a subsidized or unsubsidized. If you need money and you get a subsidized loan, typically $3,500 is interest, no interest accrues while they're in school. Unsubsidized, they're lending you the money and interest starts accruing from day one. It then said there's private loans, bank loans, even though the federal government took over, the whole industry. Go to your favorite bank or credit union. They typically have student loans. It is a little bit different. These are co-signer loans. You will not get a loan that's not co-signed other than the first federal student loans, and you get those every year. So you're going to co-sign. Understand something though, when you co-sign a loan, once they get out of school, as long as they make continuous payments for 2 to 3 years, depending upon the contract, you are then released from the obligation. Your student pays it, but you don't. Interest rates on student loans, like everything else, have come down. Even the government loan has come down to like 4 something, maybe 4.8. Then there's the parent, if you don't qualify for a private loan, there is a Parent Plus loan. The Parent Plus loan is a federal loan program that's based upon your credit, but not upon, actually it's not based upon your credit worthiness, it's based upon your credit history for the prior 90 days of application. You can borrow in your name up to the amount of school every year, just for everything related to the education, including flying and all that kind of stuff. Make no bones about it, it's expensive. I'm sorry, I'm going to show you one more thing. That's about it for the financial part and scholarships. I have lots of other stuff to tell you. I did give you some good sites that'll have some information. I wanted to show you something on here. What you need. This is what your this is what your Excel spreadsheet should look like when you work with this system. We take the colleges that are in your, come on, if it comes up, that's in that, and we generate in the ones that you're interested in. And what's generated is the milestones, what you have to do, when it's due. So for Penn State, it'll tell you the application. You have to do a council recommendation. It says it wasn't started. You put in a student deadline, you put in the notes of what's going on, then they have to submit their ACT score, and then you have to do your supplement. That way you don't lose track of anything, and this sends you text alerts and you get access to this, but it tells you when the deadlines are, right? But this is what's really important. There's a decision dashboard, and this is where you can compare the cost of a college. This is when the nausea arises. Don't worry, I can get you through this. So I go to here and I pick 4 colleges, okay? So I'll pick William and Mary, and I'll pick Penn State, and I'll pick University of Delaware, and I will pick Pitt. And now this tells you, you put in, it'll tell you, come on, where is it? It'll tell you average need-based financial aid, if you have it, what you can expect. You can see that they differ in the amount they give you. Oops, sorry about that. My computer's got COVID. Then you fill in here the total, the gifts, your financial aid awarded, the grants, and then whether they were university grant, a Pell Grant. You then indicate the scholarships that you got from these schools. You list the loans, what you've gotten, whether they're subsidized, unsubsidized, whether the student's going to work, whether they got work study. It breaks down the total cost of each school, tell you what the direct cost, what the room and board is, and indirect, that's where you can take that out because you don't know exactly what's that going to be. But if you're at Penn State, I guess people get, I don't know, 10 months, $700 a month extra. That's a lot of stuff. Estimated family contribution, these have a 0, so out of pocket's going to be this. And then it tells you, look, this is what 4 years, if you graduate in 4 years, this is how much your education is going to cost. This is how much it's going to cost you out of pocket. And then they go, what about 6 years? And now you're talking about more money and total out of pocket. So my point is, knowledge is power. We have the ability, I have the ability to give you all that knowledge. I provided you information about the Strive Scan, Dataverse, the college financial plan. I have on here the list of colleges and university newspapers. I always say that because you should always take a look at what's happening at each school. They're online to see what's going on. If you go to studentaid.gov, that's the federal government's financial aid worksheet, website. You can please go through the information. It talks about your free application for student aid information. You can get books and brochures, college preparation checklist. You know, but what I will tell you is that, and it has videos you can go through and images, and it's in different languages. I will tell you that some people like to download the instruction sheet for the FAFSA. The one that is condensed is 10 pages. The full one is 93 pages. I don't recommend you do that, but that's where the information is. Okay. I really don't have, hold on, let me just stop this. Let me stop the share so we can see each other, and then we can, let's see, you are screen sharing, and I want to stop the screen sharing, and I want to come back in full, resize the window. All right, let me get rid of this. Hopefully I'm not still screen sharing. I don't know. Anyway, I covered a lot. I appreciate the fact that you stayed on with me, here it is, for so long. I have more and more information I could keep telling you, but I wanted to give you a sense. I don't think anybody's walking away with a sense of calm. I don't want you to walk away with a sense of panic. I want you to understand that there's a process, that the only thing you can do wrong in the process is to just go with the flow, just rely upon stuff that the colleges tell you and the schools tell you, and to make decisions based upon information that is just not realistic and relevant. When COVID hit, 75% of colleges insisted they would be back in full bore. It then went down to 60 to 50 to 40. Notre Dame just closed down. UNC just closed down. Penn State didn't close down, but they decided to have a big party, those kids out there. And somebody texted me and said, they're going to take all these precautions with COVID. What are you going to do? And the response is typically, we can't get these kids to read a syllabus or come to class. How are we going to get them to wear a mask? And how are they going to get them to not, do normal things like they would do? And I just tell every parent, you have to let your kid know that this time is different than any other time, and you have repercussions coming that, schools are scared and they're gonna lock down on people. So anyway, okay, goody. I have somebody raise their hand in the first question. Hi, Leah. You are, hold on. Trying to unmute you. Okay, hi.
How are you, Jay?
Good, how are you?
I'm well. Well, you're making me nervous hearing all this stuff because our son has not done anything.
It's okay.
But anyway, he has SAT Saturday. Did you say that those are canceled?
I said half of them have been canceled. Out of the 418,000 people, there's been about 203,000 that have canceled.
Okay.
Where is he signed to take it?
I think it's local. I think it's like one of the CB schools.
I would doubt it's going forth. It's going forward. Now,
All
if you go on, and I can look it up, but if you go on collegeboard.org, they're supposed to list the schools that the sites that have been closed.
Okay.
But here's my sense. They're just opening. CB is opening. Like my wife and son are going back to school on Tuesday to start prepping, right? To start prepping for virtual.
Right.
So there's a better chance that the college is open that it will be taking place, because a lot of schools that are just going virtual only, or I'm sorry, are having people come back to school, don't want outsiders to come. But just that one, to my knowledge, has not been canceled.
All right. So tell them to look for emails or go on to, what was it to go on to?
Collegeboard.org.
Okay.
That's where you sign up for the. I'll tell you what. What I would recommend you do, I'd call the district tomorrow.
And see if they're still offering it.
And just ask if it's going to be open. They know. They know whether or not they're going to let people in.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well.
And don't worry, you know how to get in touch with me, and there's plenty.
We'll be in touch. Don't you worry.
All right, anytime.
Have a good night.
Thanks. You too. Okay, someone else be brave and ask me a question if you have questions. You don't have to be shy. All right. Well, I'm here. I believe I'm going to go over my list. I'm pretty sure I went through everything I said I was going to. Look, I gave you a lot of information. That's a lot more information that I believe you would get, and I tried, in any other place, and I wanted to make you aware of things. Don't worry if your student's not super excited to go through this process. It is daunting, and honestly, they're not quite sure what's going to be going on. I did remember before everybody leaves, I did remember, I wanted to tell you something. People were saying, what am I going to do? I can't visit. What do I do? And I go, I wrote down, if you take the time that it would take to travel to a school, to visit and get have a tour and an information session, stay there, travel back. If you took all of that time and spent that amount of time on the website of each individual school and look through not just the website, but all the stuff about freshmen, and then go into the particular programs, look for their 4-year plan. They all have a 4-year plan, and really scour what you're going to be buying. Just like you would go through, you know, if you couldn't take a test drive, you would go through all the information about a car. That's more important to get that information than to go to a tour and have a nice meal and just look around. There's plenty of time for that. Okay. I did have I have questions coming in, and I appreciate that. The first one question is, what happens if the future SAT and ACTs get canceled? I would just continue to look for an opportunity to get signed up to take it. But I would continue, so you can practice for it, but continue moving forward with the process. It's more important for you to focus on getting your kids ready, having them get their GPAs together, having them improve who they are as a person. Maybe what's another way that you can show schools that you're academically qualified if you can't take an SAT or ACT? First of all, they can look about doing dual enrollment. You think an SAT score is going to impress a college? What happens when your student's taking college courses now while they're in high school and they can get high school credit and college credit for it? Have them take a class online. I had a website that I didn't give you there are thousands of college courses online that even if a student goes in and audits it, if they report to the school that they've got, or gets a certificate or does take it for a grade, if you want to show that my kid's a good math student, science student, English person, well then if you're involved in English, then start working on your writing. Take outside writing classes, get involved in that. You have to find other ways to make up for if the GPA isn't there. They want to know what kind of a student they are. So you focus on, look, I have my kids who do this. They do a little bit every day. We meet every other day or so for 20 minutes to go through things, and it keeps it in there, becomes part of the process. So when it's time for a test, it's like anything else, they're ready to go. So don't worry so much if it gets completely canceled. Let's see, let me look at this question. I saw one. The next one is, can teacher recommendations be sent to the school before the common application, essay, etc. gets complete? Yeah, you can go on, you can just through Naviance. First of all, you can ask for the recommendation. A teacher should not send your student the recommendation directly. Colleges know if a recommendation has been seen by the student. That's why when you're filling out the Common App, you waive your FERPA rights, your Federal Education Right to Privacy Act. But yes, you request the recommendation beforehand. You recommend it through Naviance. If you're asking if it can be sent directly to the school, I would say you can have it sent directly to the school. The school's not going to know what to do with it or know who the person is until they have an application. Now, if when we're looking at schools, we contact professors in different departments and start a relationship with them and then send a letter of recommendation to them to pass on. But, you know, that's the danger of sending, you know, the recommendation in before having an application. It really does, it benefits you to make sure that the application's in and that the recommendation is then in support of it. I just want to make sure that if it's something in the mail that was sent, they will certainly take it, they will certainly look at it. It will be looked at with some suspicion that you, your student, or someone else had a chance to intervene in it. So anyway. Here's another question. My daughter didn't do so great on the SAT. What's the lowest score one should submit for test optional schools? Look, the question is, there isn't, look, here's the way you look at it. They're going to say, if you're applying to a school, if you want a unless it's a super selective school, the recommendation is, your scores and GPA should be in the top 25%, right? Top 25% of the people that are in that class. The top 25% are for the people you know, that really want to go there, that went there this year, that were admitted. You can, and then there's the next phase, which is the 50%, right? So if, you know, if you're applying to a school that top 25, like a, you know, big public university, let's say, you know, the top 25% is, let me see if Guided Path is still open. Anyway, forget about that. If you look at it, and you can go to a website called like niche, NICHE.com, is one of the websites that you can go on there, and it's like your chance of admissions calculator. And I would say if you really want to go to the school and you're not in the top 25%, but you have other things to support, you have a good GPA, then it doesn't benefit you to send your scores, okay? That's what I use. But I would also tell you that if you have an excellent GPA and other things and there's no benefit for submitting those scores, then go test optional. It does not impact you later submitting a better SAT score for purposes of qualifying for a scholarship. That'll be listed on the website. And you have to look at that score, whatever the score is now, and understand, I've taken kids who've had 950s on their SAT, and, you know, 6 months later were 400 points higher. And I've also worked with kids who needed to get certain scores for just to be NCAA eligible, and I was able to get a 900 to 1,010, right? It depends upon the work. So I would do a couple things. If a school's been doing test optional for a long time, they have a process, and I would and if they have it set up like Temple's had it for a while, they have the essays. They're just going to go, Temple goes, what are your SATs? What's your GPA? You get in, you don't get in. You get test optional, they go, what's your GPA? What can I tell from these essays? Do they really want to come here? They have a lot of other stuff going. You don't submit it. My worry this year is that schools are test optional that have never been test optional. I think they're going to look at, even though they say they won't, I think they're going to look at okay GPAs without a test score as an indication that the student is not someone who's going to get in. So, and I'll tell you what else. You don't have to use a name. Call up and talk to your admissions representative and ask them and say, my daughter is a 3.7, but she got an 1180 on the SAT. You know, should I go test optional? They'll tell you. You know, they want you to go. So I hope that helps. What is the name of the website for college courses? Well, there, let me see. Let me go back to sharing. And I honestly tell you that if you go in and see if I kept it. Let's see. Oh, I didn't keep it up, but let me tell you a few here. I'll write it right now. So one of them is called Udemy. Another one, and it's massively online open courseware, right? One of them is called Sailor. I think it's Sailor Foundation. And then, believe it or not, one is MIT Open Courseware. And then finally, there's one called Coursera. So let me, I typed that out, okay? So let me, Courseware has a, I'm an idiot. Courseware has a E, not war here. Course, Open Courseware, there. MIT Open. Now, the idea is, look, whether they take a college, MIT Open Courseware gives you an opportunity to look at college courses from MIT and a lot of other great universities. Your kid can get an idea. That's a great way to see if you're interested in the topic. I have some students who didn't do well in a particular AP course or even in college courses, and they'll go on and, or even, here's a good idea that I give to people. If you're going to go to college and you were taking intro to macroeconomics and intro to finance, if you've never had it before, you're not sure how it's going to be, take the free course online and prepare for it, and then go in and do well in college. But simply by taking a course or college courses and looking at the community colleges for dual enrollment opportunities, colleges want to see that you're doing something. So taking those courses are a way to say, oh, like I had kids who were interested in medicine, so I had them take an EMT course and they get certified as EMTs online, you know, and that shows you're really interested in medicine. I will tell you what, I am happy to send the websites. I will put together, everything that I showed you, that primary thing, the Dataverse, right, from college. I think it's college transitions. I don't know if it's college transitions. I don't know if it's .org or .com, probably .org, and it was look for their Dataverse. That set had all the things about the various college things, you know, and then finaid.org is for all your financial aid needs. I think, like, is there a, okay. Is there a specific way to tell universities what college courses your child has taken to show their willingness to learn them? Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple ways. One, in the application itself, you can put it down as an activity. You can put in that 10 things that you've done, extracurricular activities. There is a section in the essays. What I have people do is, I'm working with a couple kids who are very involved since COVID. They're involved in social justice issues, are very involved in volunteering with helping seniors. They've done like 4 or 5 things, and it's something more recent, and it was something more important and more substantive, including taking this EMT course and an economics course. And they put that in their second, in that optional 650-word essay. Is there anything else you want to tell us that you feel is that your application would be incomplete without? And they wrote, yeah, and they broke it down. They said, volunteer work, you know, they took a medical course and they talked about it, and they talked about social justice activism and they talked about it. That's how you get that in there. It's much more important to show that you're being involved in learning what it is that you like to learn, and they want to see that you're somebody who has a thirst for this education, and you're not going to just sit there and get it, you know, just wait for people to give it to you. Back in my day, when we filled out our applications, and I filled out my college application in a pencil, one of the things it asked you to do is it said, what are the last 30 books you read? And I'm like, well, great. I probably was reading 2 or 3 a week because I just love to read because there was no Netflix. They don't ask that anymore. So if you're doing things, you have to tell them, not just because you did something, but because there's a reason why you did it. Yeah, another message. Okay, the question is, do colleges put any work into working a job? It depends. I'll tell you what I mean by that. First of all, I say this, I live and die by this statement. I'm probably the only one who's ever said it. The best part-time job your kid can ever have, and this is when SATs and ACTs were plentiful. You could just pick them out anywhere you wanted. The best part-time job your kid should be doing or to do is to prepare for the SAT or ACT. Why is that? Because there is a formula. The amount of time and effort you put into practicing with guidance so you know what you're doing, the higher your score. The higher your score, the more money you're going to get from a college. And when I tell you that it is not bull when you look at what you need to do to get an additional $10,000 a year. It could be 20 points more on something. So to get 20 points, you got to put about 25 hours in. You put in 25 hours and you get $40,000. What is that? I don't know what it is. 800 bucks an hour. I mean, you're not gonna, you're not gonna get a better paying job than that. 400 bucks an hour. You're not gonna get a better paying part job. And I have a time job. And if your kid puts 6 solid months, puts 200 hours into studying for the SAT, you're looking at getting at some schools an additional $100,000, $150,000. People go, that's just salesmanship. Well, first of all, I don't sell. You either want my information and my help or you don't. You know, I'm not selling it, but it's true. You're either going to get that money based upon what you did, or you're not going to do that and not get that money. You're going to pay it. But the point is this. If you're working, colleges like to see, first of all, working a job is a great preparation for going to college because it teaches you respecting authority and working with different kind of personalities. It's the best psychology and sociology and business management type job that you can get, right? Showing up on time, you know, how do you deal with customers, cleanliness, how do you, you know, what are you responsible for? Colleges put weight into that, and especially they take a look at it if you have to work. I work with students who have to work 40 hours a week while they're going to school, because without that money that they're making at an $8 or $9 hour in a job, you know, $8 an hour job, their family's getting kicked out of where they live. They're not going to eat. So there's a huge amount of weight put on that, especially when they're working that much and they're getting great, you know, they can get great grades and do great things. Colleges put a lot of effort, a lot of emphasis on what someone is doing because they want to be doing it, and they have an interest in it, a sustained interest, and it relates to what it is or the kind of person that they are. So I've always worked. My kids always worked. But what it doesn't take the place of is if you work a part-time job because you like doing it and you like having the money and your grades, you should be putting that time into your grades. They're not going to look kindly upon that. So yes, they do. Yes, it varies by college, and some colleges put so much weight into work. There are actually 7 colleges in the United States that are called work colleges, that if you go there and you're willing to work 30 hours a week at the college, usually in the forest, on the grounds, doing things in the community, your tuition is free. Those schools value work. You still pay room and board. You get an education for free if work is there. So yes, they do put weight into work, and each school, it depends on how much. So, a lot of people thank me. I appreciate the thank you. Someone asked, the people who asked me about a fee or how I charge, I'll tell you to you like this. I either, you know, I do it based upon an hourly charge, but I also do packages. You know, I have all of these things I can do. I never tell people up front what something's going to cost before I meet them, because I'm happy, by the way, if you, with your email, send me an email. I'll send you information about me. I put together a list. I tried to bundle together the things that people need, put it together so that you have an option to hire me hourly or hire me in a 5-hour block or just for essays or whatever. And the more time you take with me, the more money you save, because I then roll it into another package or something that makes it less expensive. I do put together things that fit people's budgets. If you're someone, give you an idea, if you're someone who just says, you know, we're in Pennsylvania, you want us to go to a Pennsylvania state school, we think, you know, we need a little bit of help knowing which school, we really like to work on figuring out what it is they're going to study, make sure we do the financial aid paperwork right, make sure we're not missing out on any opportunities. You know, that's not a lot of time. You know, that's not going to be very expensive. I don't charge a lot for that amount of time, because what's the sense of going to a school that's streamlined? You know, you don't need help doing the application. You just want to make sure you know that everything is set up right. That's not expensive. Nothing's expensive. I mean, the most expensive package I have, where you can end up working with me for, you know, 15 months or 2 years. I mean, I always say this: what do you pay to get your hair cut and colored every month and your nails done once a week? You add that up, that's probably about what you're going to be paying me over that period of time for the amount of times that you go. For less than the price of a halfway decent week-long vacation, you know, you might get a year and a half of my time, and end up saving $100,000. But so it varies. But I work with everyone. I do payment plans. I have people that pay me what they can when they can. I'm here to help. I need to make so much, but I do free consultations. I'm not a bad guy to talk to. I'm pretty friendly. I will give you a lot of my time. I will tell you, after we meet, I can give you an estimate of what I think it's going to take. And I can tell you this, the more work your kid does based upon what I do, the less work I have to do, the less money it costs you. So anyway, and just to let you know, my fee is around the average of what other people pay for or charge for somebody who's been doing it for my amount of time, but I'll tell you that I usually give you 3 times the amount of hours for what you pay. So anyway, that's enough about me and my money, but thank you for asking. Okay, it's usually I do a 20-minute seminar that lasts 40 minutes, and I did an hour seminar that was an hour and 52 plus. But again, I'm happy to stay until you all click out. I do really very much appreciate you being with me. I hope you found it helpful. There's a lot more I can help you with. I want you to understand you have the power, you have the control. Your student is making the decisions about their education and their finances. We need to be realistic about things. We have to keep in mind that the world has changed somewhat. And colleges don't know exactly what they're preparing you for. They'll tell you that, and it's okay to take some time. You're not missing the boat. There's plenty of time to get this stuff done and to get it done properly. So, okay. Drop me an email, drop me a message, like my Facebook page. Please make sure that you like and follow it. Tell your friends, become my friend. And I wish you all health, good health and safety, and enjoy the trip. And I'm here for you when you need me.